At 1 a.m., my daughter collapsed at my door, beaten and betrayed by her own husband. As both a mother and a police officer, I had to choose between silence and justice. But this story isn't just about that night. It's about my 25-year journey from being the only woman in a police academy class of 200 men to becoming the first female police chief in my city's 150-year history. This is how I shattered glass ceilings, survived harassment, solved cases others couldn't, and built a legacy that changed everything. Watch until the end, hit like, subscribe, and comment your city. Your words may give strength to someone who needs it. My name is Captain Rebecca Martinez. I'm 52 years old, and this is my story of rising through the ranks in one of the toughest, most male-dominated professions in America. Early life and calling. Growing up in East LA, I witnessed injustice daily. My neighborhood was plagued by gang violence, domestic abuse, and police corruption. Most cops in our area were either crooked or didn't care about people like us. I watched my single mother work 3 jobs just to keep food on the table, while criminals terrorized our streets with impunity. My mother, Carmen, was a housekeeper who cleaned office buildings at night and rich people's homes during the day. She barely spoke English, but she had an iron will and refused to let poverty define our future. "Mija," she would tell me, while abandoning cuts from broken playground equipment. Education and determination are the only things that can change your life. Everything else is temporary. When I was 16, a female detective named Maria Santos came to our school to talk about careers in law enforcement. She was tough, confident, and commanded respect from everyone in the room, something I had rarely seen from a woman in my neighborhood. She talked about justice, protecting the innocent, and making a difference in communities like ours. After her presentation, I approached her nervously. "How did you make it in a job where everyone looks like they want you to fail?" She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Rebecca, they don't want us to fail. They expect us to fail. That's your advantage. When they underestimate you, you can accomplish things they never saw coming. But you have to be twice as good as the men and work 10 times harder." That conversation changed my life trajectory completely. I decided that night I would become a police officer and prove that a Latina from the projects could rise to the top of law enforcement. High school preparation. From that moment, I transformed myself from an average student into someone obsessed with achievement. I joined the ROTC program, started studying criminal justice, and began working out religiously. My grades jumped from C's to straight A's. I learned about famous female law enforcement officers, studied legal procedures, and read every crime novel I could find. My friends thought I had lost my mind. "Rebecca, why do you want to be a cop? Cops are the enemy in our neighborhood." But I saw it differently. I wanted to be the kind of cop I wished we'd had growing up, someone who actually cared about protecting people like my family. During senior year, I applied for college criminal justice programs and police academy preparation courses. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, pulled me aside. "Rebecca, have you considered other careers? Law enforcement is very competitive and there aren't many women in leadership positions." "Then I'll be the first," I replied. She smiled and helped me fill out scholarship applications. College and pre-academy training. I earned a full scholarship to study criminal justice at California State University. For 4 years, I maintained a 4.0 GPA while working part-time jobs to help my mother pay rent. I studied constitutional law, criminology, police procedures, and forensic science with religious dedication. During summers, I interned with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, where I got my first real taste of police culture. The deputies were initially skeptical of the college girl who wanted to learn about law enforcement, but my work ethic gradually won some of them over. Lieutenant James Rodriguez became my first mentor in law enforcement. He was a 20-year veteran who had seen countless young people come and go. "Martinez," he told me during my second summer, "you have something special, but this job will test everything you believe about yourself. Are you sure you're ready for that?" I thought I was ready. I had no idea what was coming. Police Academy struggles. At 22, I entered the police academy as one of only 3 women in a class of 200 cadets. The other two women were Angela Foster, a former Marine, and Jennifer Wells, whose father was a retired police captain. We immediately formed an alliance, knowing we would need each other to survive. The instructors made it clear from day one that they didn't think women belonged in uniform. Sergeant Morrison, a gruff 30-year veteran with arms like tree trunks, announced during our first formation, "Ladies, I give you 2 weeks before you quit and go back to nursing school where you belong. This job requires physical and mental toughness that most women simply don't possess." The physical training was brutal. 6-mile runs in full gear, obstacle courses designed for men 6 inches taller than me, and combat training that left me bruised and exhausted every day. But the psychological warfare was worse. Male cadets would accidentally shoulder check me during drills, hide my equipment before inspections, and spread rumors about my personal life. "I heard Martinez is only here because of affirmative action," one cadet whispered loud enough for me to hear. "Probably can't even lift her own weapon." The instructors ignored it all, claiming it was building character and preparing us for real police work. When I complained to Morrison about the harassment, he shrugged. "Martinez, if you can't handle a few jokes from classmates, how are you going to handle real criminals?" The firearms failure, the breaking point, came during our first firearms qualification. I had practiced extensively and felt confident, but when test day arrived, my hands were shaking from stress and exhaustion. I failed by 2 points, just 2 points out of a possible 250. As I walked off the range, Morrison smirked and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Don't worry, Martinez, maybe you can be a school crossing guard instead. At least then you'll only be protecting children, not real citizens." The humiliation was crushing. Several male cadets laughed and made jokes about women and guns. That night, I called my mother in tears, ready to quit. "Mija," she said firmly, "remember why you started this. Remember Detective Santos. Remember all the women who will come after you. You don't get to give up now." Those words lit a fire inside me that burns to this day. I spent every evening after training at the shooting range, practicing until my hands cramped and my arms ached. I studied police procedures until 2 a.m. every night, memorizing laws and regulations while my classmates slept. When other cadets went out drinking on weekends, I was doing extra physical training and running miles through the hills. I wasn't just competing with my classmates anymore. I was fighting for every woman who would come after me, and every little girl who had been told she couldn't do something because of her gender. Academy redemption. 4 months later, I graduated second in class overall and scored perfect marks on firearms qualification. When Morrison handed me my badge during the graduation ceremony, he couldn't meet my eyes. "Good job, Officer Martinez," he mumbled. Detective Santos attended my graduation. Afterward, she pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you, Rebecca. But graduating is just the beginning. The real test starts now." Angela Foster also graduated, though Jennifer Wells had dropped out during month 3 due to a knee injury. Angela and I promised to stay in touch and support each other as we began our careers. Rookie year hell. My first assignment was the night shift in the roughest precinct in the city, Harbor Division, where domestic violence calls, gang shootings, and drug deals were routine. My training officer was Detective Frank Sullivan, a 25-year veteran with gray hair, tired eyes, and a reputation for not suffering fools. "Martinez Ancia," he said on my first day, "I've trained 42 rookies in my career. 38 of them were men and 4 were women. 3 of those women quit within 6 months. The 4th one became a damn good detective. We'll see which category you fit into." Sullivan was tough but fair. He taught me how to read people, how to de-escalate situations, and how to survive on the streets. But the other officers in the precinct made it clear I wasn't welcome. They excluded me from conversations, forgot to back me up on calls, and made crude jokes about women in my presence. The worst was Officer Danny Morrison, Sergeant Morrison's son, who had apparently inherited the attitude about female officers from his father.
He would deliberately park far away when I called for backup, forcing me to handle dangerous situations alone until other units arrived. First major case. 3 months into my rookie year, everything changed. We responded to a domestic violence call in a rundown apartment complex. The caller reported screaming and sounds of violence from apartment 3B. Sullivan and I arrived to find Maria Gonzalez, a 28-year-old mother of 2, bleeding from head wounds and cowering in the corner while her boyfriend, Ramon Torres, shouted threats and threw furniture. Torres was 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, and clearly high on something. "Police, everyone calm down," Sullivan commanded. Torres spun around, his eyes wild with rage and drugs. "You cops need to mind your own business. This is between me and my woman." Sullivan tried to de-escalate, but Torres grabbed a kitchen knife and advanced towards Maria. In that split second, training took over. I drew my weapon and positioned myself between Torres and Maria. "Sir, drop the knife now," I commanded, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Torres laughed and sneered. "You think I'm scared of some little girl with a gun? You probably don't even know how to use it." He was wrong. When Torres lunged towards Maria with the knife, I fired one shot center mass, dropping him instantly. The shot probably saved Maria's life and definitely saved mine and Sullivan's. The shooting investigation took 3 weeks. Internal Affairs questioned every detail. Other officers whispered about whether I really needed to use deadly force, and the media scrutinized my every move. Some male officers suggested I had panicked and overreacted, but Sullivan backed me completely. Martinez did exactly what any experienced officer would have done. She saved lives and followed proper procedures perfectly. The shooting was ruled justified, and Maria Gonzalez sent me a letter thanking me for saving her life. That letter still hangs in my office today.
Building reputation. Word of the shooting spread through the department, and suddenly other officers began treating me differently. Some with respect, others with suspicion, but none with dismissive indifference. I had proven I could handle dangerous situations and make split-second life-or-death decisions. Sullivan recommended me for detective training after just 18 months as a patrol officer, unusually fast promotion that raised some eyebrows. "Martinez has the instincts and intelligence to be an outstanding detective," he wrote in my evaluation. "She notices details others miss and has exceptional interviewing skills." The detective exam was incredibly competitive. 200 officers applied for 12 positions. I studied for months, reviewing case law, investigative procedures, and forensic techniques. When results were posted, I had scored 3rd highest overall. Captain William Hayes, who ran the detective division, called me into his office. "Martinez, you've got the highest test scores I've seen in years, and Sullivan speaks very highly of your work. But detective work is different from patrol. It requires patience, attention to detail, and the ability to build complex cases over months or years. Are you ready for that responsibility?" "Captain, I've been preparing for this opportunity my entire career. I won't let you down." Detective years. As a detective, I specialized in domestic violence and sexual assault cases, crimes that male detectives often handled poorly or avoided altogether. Victims felt more comfortable talking to me, and I had personal understanding of the dynamics involved in abusive relationships. My first major case as a detective involved a series of sexual assaults near the university campus. 3 women had been attacked over 6 months, but the previous detective had made little progress. The victims described similar attackers, but there was no physical evidence linking the crimes. I spent weeks re-interviewing victims, studying patrol reports, and mapping attack locations. Finally, I noticed a pattern the previous detective had missed. All 3 attacks occurred within 2 blocks of a particular bus route, and all happened on Thursday nights between 10 p.m. and midnight. Working with patrol units, we set up surveillance along the bus route every Thursday night for 3 weeks. On the 4th Thursday,
We observed a man following female passengers who got off the bus alone. When he approached a potential victim, we moved in and arrested him. David Chen, 34, was carrying zip ties, duct tape, and a knife. DNA evidence linked him to all 3 assaults, plus 2 additional attacks in neighboring jurisdictions. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Captain Hayes called me into his office after Chen's conviction. Martinez, that was outstanding detective work. You saw patterns and connections that others missed. How would you feel about working more serious cases? Homicide detective. After 3 years in general detective work, I was promoted to the homicide unit, the most prestigious assignment in the department. Homicide detectives were the elite, and I was only the 2nd woman ever assigned to the unit. My partner was Detective Robert Williams, a 15-year veteran who had solved more murders than anyone in the department. Bobby was initially skeptical about working with a woman, but he was professional enough to give me a chance. Martinez, homicide work gets into your soul. You'll see things that will haunt you forever, and you'll meet people who will shake your faith in humanity. But you'll also get justice for people who can't speak for themselves. That's what keeps us going. Our first case together was the murder of Elena Rodriguez, a 19-year-old college student found strangled in her apartment. Elena's family was devastated, and the media was pressuring the department for quick results. Bobby taught me how to process crime scenes systematically, how to interview witnesses effectively, and how to build airtight cases that would hold up in court. But I brought my own perspective. I noticed things about Elena's life that male detectives might have overlooked. Her roommate mentioned that Elena had been nervous about someone following her, but she hadn't reported it to police because cops don't take women seriously about stalking. That comment led us to investigate Elena's ex-boyfriend, Marcus Thompson, who had been harassing her since their breakup. Thompson had an alibi for the night of the murder, but I discovered he had paid his cousin $500 to lie for him. When we confronted the cousin with evidence of the payment, he broke down and admitted Thompson had asked him to provide false alibi information. Thompson was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Elena's mother hugged me after the verdict. Thank you for caring about my daughter and never giving up.
Building a team. Over the next 8 years in homicide, Bobby and I solved 47 murder cases, a 94% clearance rate that was the highest in the department's history. We became known as the team that could crack the impossible cases, and other detectives started requesting our help with their toughest investigations. I developed a reputation for being able to interview suspects and witnesses in ways that got them to reveal crucial information. Female victims and witnesses trusted me with sensitive details they wouldn't share with male detectives. Even hardened criminals sometimes opened up to me because I didn't match their expectations of what a cop should be. Bobby became my strongest advocate and closest friend on the force. Martinez isn't just a good detective. He told anyone who would listen, "She's the best partner I've ever had. She sees angles and possibilities that the rest of us miss." But success also brought increased scrutiny. Some male detectives resented that a woman was getting high-profile cases and media attention. They whispered that I was only successful because Bobby was doing most of the work, or that I was getting easy cases. The whispers stopped when I solved the Riverside Strangler case working alone while Bobby was recovering from surgery. The Riverside Strangler. For 8 months, someone had been murdering women in the Riverside area. 5 victims, all found strangled in their homes with no signs of forced entry or sexual assault. The killer seemed to vanish without leaving physical evidence, and the previous detective team had made no progress. Captain Hayes assigned the case to me while Bobby was out on medical leave. "Martinez, this is your chance to prove you can handle major cases independently. The media and city council are demanding results." I spent weeks studying the case files, visiting each crime scene, and re-interviewing witnesses. The killer's method was consistent. He somehow gained entry to victims' homes, strangled them with their own clothing or household items, and left no fingerprints or DNA evidence.
but I noticed something others had missed. Each victim had recently used a home repair service, though they had used different companies. When I mapped out all the repair services each victim had contacted within 2 weeks of their murders, I found one company that had been contacted by all 5 victims within 2 weeks of their murders. Metro Home Services was a small company with 3 employees. Owner Tony DeLuca seemed legitimate, but when I ran background checks on his employees, I discovered that maintenance worker Carl Fisher had prior arrests for burglary and assault. Fisher's method was clever. He would respond to service calls, assess the homes and victims' routines, then return later to commit the murders. He wore gloves and used victims' own clothing to strangle them, leaving no DNA evidence. Surveillance confirmed Fisher was casing a potential 6th victim. We arrested him before he could strike again and found detailed notes about his intended victim's schedule and home security. Fisher was convicted on 5 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. The case made national news and established me as one of the department's top investigators. Lieutenant promotion. After 12 years as a detective, I was promoted to lieutenant and put in charge of the entire detective division, supervising 47 detectives, including the homicide, robbery, burglary, and sexual assault units. The promotion made me the highest-ranking woman in the department's history, but it also made me a target for officers who believed women didn't belong in leadership positions. Some detectives initially refused to follow my orders, claiming they didn't respect female authority. I called a meeting with all division detectives on my first day as lieutenant. I know some of you have concerns about working for a woman. I'm not going to try to convince you I belong here. I'm going to prove it through results. Judge me by the cases we solve and the justice we deliver, not by my gender. Within 6 months, our division had the highest clearance rates in the city. We solved several high-profile cases, including a series of armed robberies that had terrorized local businesses for months. Even the skeptics began to acknowledge my leadership abilities. Personal life challenges. Success in my career came at significant personal cost. I had married Michael Torres, a firefighter, during my detective years, and we had 2 children, David and Sophia. But the demands of police work put enormous strain on our marriage. Michael struggled with my irregular hours, dangerous work, and the stress I brought home from difficult cases. "Rebecca, you're married to this job more than you're married to me," he complained during one particularly difficult argument. He wasn't wrong. I missed school plays, birthday parties, and family dinners because of work commitments. When I did make it home, I was often distracted by ongoing cases or exhausted from long days. Our divorce was devastating, but it also strengthened my resolve to succeed professionally. If I was going to sacrifice so much for this career, I was determined to reach the top.
The domestic violence call. Now, back to where this story began. 3 years ago, my daughter Sophia, now 22 and married to James Patterson, showed up at my door at 1 a.m. with a black eye, split lip, and bruises on her arms. "Mom," she sobbed as I helped her inside, "James hit me. He said if I told anyone, especially you, he would make sure I never saw daylight again." My first instinct was to grab my gun and go find James immediately. My second instinct, as a trained police officer, was to document everything and build a case that would put him behind bars permanently. "Sophia, we're going to the hospital right now to document your injuries, and then we're going to file charges. This ends tonight." But Sophia was terrified. "Mom, you don't understand. James has friends in the police department. He bragged about having cops who would protect him if anything happened." That revelation made my blood run cold. If James had corrupt officers helping him, a simple domestic violence report might disappear or be mishandled. I spent the next 2 weeks conducting my own investigation. I discovered James had been abusing Sophia for months, and he did indeed have connections to several patrol officers who frequented the bar he managed. Using my position and contacts, I built an airtight case against James while keeping Sophia safe at my house. When we finally arrested him, I made sure Internal Affairs was investigating the officers who had been protecting him.
James was convicted of domestic violence and sentenced to 3 years in prison. 2 patrol officers were fired for corruption. Sophia got counseling and slowly rebuilt her confidence. That case reminded me why I became a police officer in the first place, to protect people who couldn't protect themselves, even when those people were my own daughter. Captain promotion. Last year, after 23 years with the department, I was promoted to captain and given command of the entire precinct, 450 officers and civilian employees. The promotion made me the first female precinct commander in the city's 150-year history. The ceremony was attended by city officials, media, and law enforcement leaders from across the region. My mother, now 74, sat in the front row with tears streaming down her face. "Captain Martinez," the chief said as he pinned my new rank insignia, "you've earned this promotion through exceptional service, outstanding leadership, and unwavering dedication to justice. You've proven that excellence knows no gender boundaries." But the real moment that mattered was when Detective Santos, now retired, approached me after the ceremony. "Rebecca, you've exceeded every dream I had for you. You've opened doors for countless women who will follow in your footsteps." Current challenges and goals. As captain, I'm responsible for reducing crime, improving community relations, and managing a complex organization with diverse personalities and challenges. I've implemented new training programs on domestic violence, cultural sensitivity, and de-escalation techniques. We've reduced violent crime in our district by 23% over the past year through community policing initiatives and improved detective work. We've also increased the number of women and minorities in our ranks by actively recruiting at colleges and community organizations. But challenges remain. Some veteran officers still resist taking orders from a woman, and budget constraints limit our ability to implement all the reforms I believe are necessary. My ultimate goal is to become police chief, a position no woman has ever held in our city. Chief Morrison, yes, the same Morrison who tried to break me in the academy, is retiring next year, and I'm being considered for the position. If I'm selected, I'll be responsible for 2,400 officers and a $300 million budget. More importantly, I'll have the opportunity to transform policing in our city and create a department that truly serves all citizens equally. Advice for women in law enforcement. Women considering law enforcement careers often ask for my advice. Here's what I tell them. First, be prepared to work twice as hard as men to prove yourself. It's not fair, but it's reality. You'll need to be stronger, smarter, and more professional than your male counterparts to earn the same respect. Second, find mentors and allies, both male and female. I couldn't have succeeded without people like Detective Santos, Frank Sullivan, and Bobby Williams, who believed in my abilities and opened doors for me. Third, never compromise your integrity or values to fit in. There will be pressure to look the other way, to go along with questionable practices, or to stay silent about problems. Don't do it. Your integrity is worth more than any promotion. Fourth, take care of your physical and mental health. This job will test you in ways you can't imagine. Make sure you have support systems outside work, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Finally, remember that you're not just representing yourself, you're representing every woman who dreams of a career in law enforcement. Your success opens doors for others, so make it count. Reflection on breaking barriers. Looking back on 25 years in law enforcement, I'm proud of what I've accomplished, but I'm more excited about what comes next. There are still barriers to break and glass ceilings to shatter. The little girl from East LA who wanted to make a difference has become a captain who leads hundreds of officers and protects thousands of citizens. But the most important thing I've learned is that breaking barriers isn't just about personal achievement. It's about creating opportunities for others. When young women see me in uniform, they know they can do this job too. When domestic violence victims see a female commander, they know someone will take their cases seriously. When communities see diverse leadership in their police department, they have more trust in law enforcement. That's what makes all the struggles, sacrifices, and challenges worthwhile. I didn't just climb the ladder for myself. I climbed it so other women could follow. Final message. Friends, if my story has inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with any woman who has been told she can't achieve her dreams because of her gender. Comment below with your city and tell me about the barriers you're facing or the goals you're working towards. Your words might give strength to someone who needs it. Remember, every glass ceiling that gets broken makes it easier for the next person to reach even higher. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Prove them wrong with your actions and results. The little girl who dreams of making a difference can grow up to change the world. One case, one promotion, one shattered barrier at a time. Stay strong, stay focused, and never give up on your dreams.